Hello and thanks for watching this short video. It focuses on reporting in QuickBooks Online, but specifically around source versus target and class tracking. So I'm going to use a sales receipt, and I'm going to use a bill, and I'm going to use a transaction journal report, and then we'll use like a P&L and a balance sheet, and what can you filter. And this should teach source versus target. Again, that's summary versus detail really. And similar rules as to desktop, a little bit different. Because every line of a journal entry is considered target, and all classes are at the target level. That's why you can't get a balance sheet by class. But you can get a balance sheet by location because location's in the summary. So class and location tracking can be turned on in your account and settings under the gear icon, and you can have your class and location list. I have two locations, A and B. Notice you can only have one location per transaction, but I can have a class per line if I want. So I am going to save this sales receipt because I also have a couple custom fields. Now the custom fields are at the source level up top, and so would the accounts receivable line. But the revenue is going to be at the target. So on a report, when I'm looking at the revenue lines on the report, which would be target, then I should be able to see the classes. Now I know you can create a class to be a summary. So like the whole amount of the sales receipt would go to the class. That's one of the settings, but that still doesn't change the fact class tracking in QuickBooks Online Plus is solely a target deal, right? It's not going to be in the source or summary area, and that matters on a balance sheet by class. That's why you don't see accounts payable and accounts receivable split out by class, but a P&L all day long. And you can do a balance sheet by location as opposed to a balance sheet by class. That's really the workaround. However, the one caveat is that you can only have one location per transaction. Okay, so as long as I think we have the moral of the story going, then let's go ahead and click Save here. Now on any transaction, you can click on the More tab and click on Transaction Journal. This is your Control Y report, and this will help visualize it. So the top line is source, right? Got the transaction name, the date, the number, the customer name, undeposited funds, right? That's going to be impacted there. It's actually a sales receipt. There's no AR in this case, right? I'm not using an invoice, sales receipt. But undeposited funds will be debited, and then the revenue accounts are going to be credited, as well as sold inventory asset, and cost of goods sold is actually debited, which we know. Okay, and if there was sales tax would be credited. Correct? So this is your T-chart. It should balance between the debit and credit. Now we're going to add a couple of columns. So I'm going to add class, and then I'll step off, and you see that class shows up, right, on all the revenue account lines because that's target. So that would be there. It's not going to show up at the balance sheet level though, right, or on deposited funds. Now if I add location, getting back to the little baby gear and check off location and step off, you see location shows up on all lines because location really is great for a balance sheet. But again, I can only have one location per transaction. But whether it's source or target, location will be reflective. And this kind of helps understand like source versus target. Like if I could add a custom field to a target looking or detail oriented report, that's not going to show up because the custom field is in the source area, the top area of the transaction. So reports, the general rule is where is the data it's pulling from? Where is it on the form? Is it in the top section or the bottom section? The summary or the detail, the source or the target. Continue on with the story. Let's go to a bill because I find that with the balance sheet by class, this is a great way just to show you that it's not viable because you're going to want to run see your bills and have split out lines by classes, etc. Your nonprofit clients will anyway. So go to search, and then because that gives me the last reports or transactions I've opened, and you can always get to an advanced search. I love showing that. It's just a quick way to get somewhere. So I'm going to go to the bill that I just created for this purpose. For this big pet vendor, similar thing. I'm not tagging items in this case. I'm just, at the account level. Job materials, I got freight and delivery, and I got the disposal fees for all that stuff, right? I can get rid of. The job materials is going to overhead. Then I got freight and delivery as part of retail, and then pet care is for the disposal fees. Now the main location is going to be location B. So if I want to run a balance sheet by location, I'd be able to see the 1575 for accounts payable at that location. However, nowhere would I see $500 or $800 in an AP splitting out by class. And we'll go look at that. Let's go look at the Control Y report. I should say transaction journal. You know what I mean? I'm thinking desktop, and then we'll go to the balance sheet by class. So again, the transaction journal report, to see the stuff behind the scenes, you go to More, Transaction Journal. Any transaction will have that More tab at the bottom, so you can see the journal entry behind the scenes. So again, the source information is there, the top part of the bill. I got the date, the transaction type, the vendor, And then notice memo description doesn't show up there because memo is at the bottom section of the transaction. It's important to note. Accounts payable, right? 1575 being credited. And then I have the expense or cost of goods sold debited. If I add class, show more columns here, add class, step off, right? The class won't show at the accounts payable section, right? This should already tell me that a balance sheet by class is just not happening. But the expense accounts or cost of goods sold, sure, the class shows because that's target level. And if I go back though and add location, which is summary and source, it's actually both, right? I keep proving that to myself. See, location shows up for any line, whether it's source or the target lines. Now it's important to know, if I go to the plus sign, journal entry, all lines of a journal entry, if I go to the one of the last ones I've done, we'll just do this one. All lines of a journal entry for class are considered target. Now, that being said, if you tag accounts payable on a journal entry as a class, that would show up on the balance sheet. But we don't want our clients to just do journal entries because you lose all that transactional reporting. You really need that detail on reports like sales by customer, sales by products and service, right? Expense reporting. You need the transactions. We need the checks, the bills, etc., not just a journal entry. Really, journal entry just for you guys. And even then, should be pretty rare when you're using them. Okay, now let's go to a balance sheet. And this should tell you too. I mean, we got a profit and loss by customer and a profit and loss by location and class, but nowhere do we have a balance sheet by class. And I mean, Premier and Enterprise have it, but you have to do a lot of work to get it accurate anyway. I think it's just the inherent source versus target rules within QuickBooks, period, whether it's desktop or QBO. But when I go to a balance sheet, and we'll just look at today, because I believe that's when I did most of the activity, and I'm going to look at columns by classes and just run it. Don't worry about the funds. Let's look at overhead, pet care, and retail. I'm going to filter this report just for those classes. So you get on to filter, right? Customize filter, check off class, and then within here, just check off the ones that you want to specify. And this is overhead, pet care, and retail. Okay, and we'll run the report. That should help. Notice for any of the assets or accounts payable, right, even though I have stuff from today, you're not going to see it. I can definitely see net income. And if I was on a P&L, you could see it. We'll look at that. Let's duplicate the tab and we'll go look at the profit and loss by class. So now I got the profit and loss by class, which is actually a canned report, and I filtered it by these 3 classes for today. And you can see how everything is split out appropriately. And you could even do profit and loss by location. So the profit and loss all day long is fine. You can do all of this. It's defaulting to last year because that's my default date in report tools, which is under the accountant toolbox report tools. If you want to set default date range, go in there to do that. That's what you're seeing. But I'm just going to do today. In location, you're going to see all day long and class on a profit and loss. But it's really the balance sheet where the class, particularly for your balance sheet accounts, is not viable unless you're using a journal entry, which we don't want to do. And that has to do with source and target rules. You got to understand that. Class tracking is solely target level. Okay, in most balance sheet activity, that's happening up top. So, well, how do you get a balance sheet by class? And again, as long as your client can just do one metric per transaction, meaning one location, the whole amount, and not have to split out the bill across multiple locations, just one, then you could do a balance sheet, and we'll do it for today. You can do it by locations. That's what we want, locations. The balance sheet by location, I'm on location B. If you go down to accounts payable, see, it's going to be part of the 1575 I think I had in there. It's probably another $100 here or there from something else for location A. That's when it's going to show up, when I've done a balance sheet and filtered by location and added those specific locations. Thank you.